are today with Kelcey Patrick-Ferree, principal at Law Offices of Kelcey Patrick-Ferree. And Kelly is a business attorney whose practice focuses on internet and social media law. She volunteers with several Twin Cities educational and charitable organizations and actively participates in several social media sites. I am so excited to be here today with Kelcey. We sit together on the advisory board for the National Institute of Social Media. That's how we know each other. And Kelcey came up with the most phenomenal questions that, from the legal aspects of social media that I just had to have her on the show. So thank you so much for coming today. I'm really excited about this.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
That's good. That's good. So I'm going to start right in. What should small business owners worry about when they think about protecting their themselves with social media?
There are a number of things that you need to be aware of online. I wouldn't say worry about, but be aware of when you're participating in social media. One of those is intellectual property. You want to make sure that you have the right to post what you're posting. Another one is, in general, trade secrets and proprietary information. You want to make sure that you're not posting information that you wouldn't actually want other people to get hold of. Another one is that now that everyone can be a publisher, everyone is capable of libel or defamation in ways that they didn't used to be. It used to be you could go to the bar and complain about something, and it wouldn't really get past the people you were talking to.
We go to the bar and complain about things.
Right. But now people go to Twitter and complain about things, and it gets all over the world.
Right. So, I've seen some things like that, and I find that they're not very well thought out usually. It's more of an emotional response. And then that emotional response is out there for everyone forever. So that's kind of a scary thing about it. So are there any laws or rules that small business owners should be particularly aware of when using social media?
Yes, absolutely. The regulatory authority that you need to know the most about when you're using social media is the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. You can look at their website at ftc.gov. And they regulate privacy issues, and they regulate bloggers and the kinds of things that bloggers can say. So the most recent blogger regulations said that when you have a financial interest in something that you're saying online, something that you're saying publicly, you need to disclose that financial interest. So people sometimes will say, oh, I just love this toothpaste, right? Well, that's fine. You can say you love your toothpaste, but if the toothpaste company gave you a free sample of toothpaste for the purpose of getting you to say online in public, I just love that toothpaste, you have to say, I got it for free from Crest or Colgate or whoever, so that I would review it and talk about it online.
So what if somebody makes a mistake? What if they post something and then they think about it and they say, well, I didn't really have I don't have the legal authority to post that, or I don't own it and I posted it. Can they ever get that back?
Not really. Once it's out there, it's out there. There are some things that you can do to try to remediate. You can go to the content owner and say, gosh, I'm really sorry, I posted this, and is it okay? Can I get a license retroactively? That may or may not work out for you. It depends on the content owner and how they feel about it. You can take it down right away and just hope that the content owner doesn't ever notice. But you really do need to take a minute and think before you post things. Make sure that all your ducks are in a row.
Wow, that's a little bit scary that you can't, because I myself have posted something, not really even, I wasn't even thinking that I was posting a song that was under copyright. And I was notified by, I think I was posting it on Facebook, that I was in copyright infringement, and that if I did that again, that I would actually lose my privileges. So it was like one of those things I didn't even think about. So then I went and I had music created. I paid somebody to create the music, and then I was afraid to use the music that I had paid somebody to create. So, you know, because then there's also the other, so I actually, even though I paid, I asked for permission to be able to use that music. So, you know, there are, because we're going through our daily lives as a business owner, you know, we're trying to get things up and we're trying to, you know, send the best, you know, our messages out there. And sometimes there's that little glitch that, you know, we may not even be thinking of or aware of.
Oh, yeah.
So what kinds of sticky situations can small business owners get into on social media that they might not be, you know, thinking of or?
Well, that's certainly one of them where you could, not even thinking about it, post a song that wound up being under copyright. Copyright in the United States these days lasts for a very, very long time. I think the earliest date of anything that is definitely not under copyright is if it's before 1923. And then there's a period of time in there that's a little bit ambiguous. If it was registered and then renewed, then it will still be under copyright. But then the copyright term lasts for a very long time these days, so it's very easy to accidentally post something that is still subject to copyright. If you are working with another business, sometimes you might inadvertently reveal something about the other business online that they didn't want you to reveal, especially if you've entered into some kind of confidentiality agreement about that relationship. And then, of course, there's always the libel thing. You could post something that winds up being untrue, especially if you knew or had reason to know that it was untrue. You're going to run into some problems with that.
Well, you know, from my standpoint, that's a little bit difficult because my clients pay me to promote them, and sometimes there's a little bit of a like a double-edged sword with that, because you want to go out and you want to promote them and you're trying to position them in the best light, and sometimes they don't want to be as, you know, public. You know, I've had that happen where clients are like, do we really have to keep posting pictures of me? And I'm like, well, it's really all about you, so, you know, and people want to see. So there's also that public and private side that's kind of difficult for people. You know, it used to be where people would say, well, I'm not going to have, you know, any social media because I don't want to, you know, I want to be private. But I think privacy is an illusion to begin with. So I have to ask you, so all the different facets of law, what made you decide to get involved with this?
I just, I had an interest in privacy law and an interest in copyright law and an interest in First Amendment law, and I enjoy contract writing, and that all came together on internet and social media. So that's the area of law that I chose to practice.
So how long have you been practicing?
Just about 5 years now.
5 years. So you kind of came into it when it was really hitting big. So how many, do you know if there's a lot of attorneys now that specialize in that?
I think it's becoming a more and more common practice area, yeah, that's safe to say. But the privacy laws and all of these things really didn't even start to be an issue until around 2006, you know, when Facebook started to come into its own, and things started to get very interesting in who could post what online.
Right. So now, do you think that every small business should have a social media policy?
I don't think it's necessary for every small business. If you're small enough and it's just 2 or 3 people, that's pretty manageable. But when you start getting any larger than that, you need to start thinking about, well, how do we communicate the needs of the business to all of the employees, especially the ones who are handling the social media matters. So it's not a necessity for every small business, but when you start to get to that 4 or 5 level, you need to think about it.
So when I was looking at your website and I did some research on you, I found that you think that Best Buy has a great policy. So tell us about the policy, because I read it and I think it's pretty good. And I do some work for Best Buy quite often. So tell me about why you think that policy is so good.
Well, what I really like about Best Buy's policy is that it treats its employees like adults. It doesn't go into unnecessary detail. It just gives some broad guidelines. You know, don't do anything dumb, basically. So I've always liked Best Buy's policy. I think it's been in place for 4 or 5 years now. And I always point to it as this is a very good policy. It treats people like adults, and it doesn't go into unnecessary detail. That's where people tend to run into trouble, is when they go into unnecessary detail, which actually in June, there was just a National Labor Relations Board statement issued that said that there were several social media policies they had gone through and looked at, and they had problems with them, and it was partially because the companies were trying to go into too much detail about the kinds of things that were and were not allowed. And you cannot prohibit employees from discussing certain work-related topics, and these policies were written in such a way that they could be construed as preventing employees from discussing these particular work-related topics. So the NLRB was not happy with those policies.
Wow, that sounds really complicated.
It can get complicated, yes. It's generally a good idea to consult with a lawyer when you're writing your social media policy, so you don't, step on any of those toes.
Yes, yes. So is that something that you normally do for your clients, is help them to write policies?
I do, yes.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So the other question I had was, Best Buy, it's really interesting because I think that they have so many different levels to their social media. There's so many different things going on that it seems to me like that would be kind of difficult to, keep track of. Do they have, and I don't know the answer to this, but you probably do they have specific departments that are just focused on social media, or is it throughout? Because I know that they have a lot of social media is from their marketing department. So I don't know if they have departments that are just set up for social media or if it's throughout.
I believe how they do it, and I'm not positive because I've never worked at Best Buy, but I believe they do have a set department that does social media, and those are marketing professionals who do just the social media communication for the company. And it's, but there's also the policy that we talked about, and that is for any Best Buy employee who uses social media. And that policy helps them comply with those blogger regulations that we talked about earlier from the FTC. And the blogger regulations say that you have to disclose if you have potential monetary gain from anything that you're posting. So if a Best Buy employee, just general Best Buy employee who's not involved with the social media, official social media for Best Buy, goes and says, oh, hey, I found this great price at Best Buy, they have to say that they are a Best Buy employee. So Best Buy provides for both. They have their official communications, and then they have their ways for their employees to participate in social media who are not the official communicators for the company.
Wow. So yeah, because there's a lot of social media that comes out of Best Buy, and there's some that's very structured, and other that's not necessarily, it's basically very casual, if you will.
Yes.
So there's a debate going on now about employers or potential employers looking at potential employees and their social media. And some people on one side say, that that's personal information and they shouldn't be able to do that. And other people say that they should be able to look and make the decision as per the information that's out there. So what do you think about that?
Well, first of all, the really controversial thing that I think that happened was when employers were asking employees to give them their passwords. So it wasn't just that they were looking at the publicly available information like your Twitter stream or any public postings on Facebook. They wanted to actually log into your Facebook account and see all of the personal posts between you and your friends, see who you were friends with, that kind of thing. But it wasn't a lot of companies or a lot of, there were some government employers too, that were asking for that information. I think that there were only 10, I've heard that there were only 10 documented cases of this happening. It's not a common practice because employers don't want to have certain types of information about you when they're hiring you. They don't want to know your religion. They don't want to know, if you have kids, your marital status, that kind of thing, because then they can get sued for discrimination. They may wish they knew, but they don't actually want to know this information. So if it's publicly posted information, there's a certain amount of, well, you did put that out there in public. So if people are looking at Twitter streams and saying, well, this person sure does swear a lot, I don't think I really want to hire them because of that, that's one thing. But if they're looking and seeing, oh, this person is Jewish, this person is a Muslim, I don't want to hire them, that's something else. So many employers choose not to look at that stuff or to get a report from a third-party provider that does a special screening and doesn't tell them any of the religion information, either protected information, but will say, gosh, this person sure does swear a lot.
Okay, so now there's companies that they have a criteria that they use to rate potential employees as per the social media?
Yes.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So isn't it illegal for a company to ask a password to social media?
It is in some states now that that whole thing happened in the news. I don't remember which states have passed laws, but I do know that at least one state has passed a law making it illegal for an employer to request a password. Otherwise, it's a violation of the Facebook terms of use for you to give your password to anyone else. And that doesn't necessarily make it illegal. It's kind of up for debate. There is a law that says that you can't access a computer system without the right authorization, but it's not really clear.
Okay.
Exactly. It's kind of a complicated question right now. It's not really settled.
Complicated, yes. It sounds very complicated.
I
don't know that I would really want to work for a company that wants my passwords to, all my different social media. I don't think that sounds like I would want to work for a company that is so intrusive, because it sounds very intrusive.
Yeah, and that's the choice you have to make. You can refuse to give your password and you might not get hired.
Right. Well, it just seems like that would be overstepping. So now I want to ask you, what are 3 things that everyone should keep in mind when they are, maybe going to press send on that post, or, what are things that people should keep in mind that will keep them safe and secure and, maybe, a few years from now not feeling like they have egg on their face?
Well, the first and most important one is that the law is still the law online. Just because you're on the internet, it doesn't make it okay to do whatever you want. The second and third kind of come from that. The second one is that every time you post something on social media, you're a publisher, and you should think accordingly. Anything that you say is said in public, and that has a lot of different implications, both legal and real world. And the third is that it's very important to be truthful. That FTC blogger regulation comes into that. When you are talking about certain things, you need to disclose certain other things, your own financial interests, and that sort of thing.
All right, that's great advice. That's really great advice. So there's so much going on. How do you keep up with all the information that you're getting on a regular basis? How do you keep up with that? I mean, is it like a constant thing of reading and watching and paying attention to this court case and seeing how this happens? Because it just seems like it's constant.
Yeah, there's a certain element of making sure that you're on all the right emailing lists and Twitter following, Twitter streams and all of that. And then anytime you're doing a new policy, you always have to check and make sure that there hasn't been a new law passed, or there hasn't been a new court case that would affect what you can say. So there has to be research every single time to make sure there's nothing new and different.
Wow, and then you have to keep your existing clients up on the changes in the law, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that sounds like a big job. That's a lot. So, well, thank you so much for coming today and appearing on our show. I really love talking to you and learning more, and I hope maybe we can do this again in the future. As things change, I'm sure we'll have more things to talk about.
Yes, they will most assuredly change. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're welcome. And how can we find out about you?
You can go to my website. It is www.businesslawmn, as in Minnesota.com. Or you can follow me on Twitter. It's Kelcey PF, KELCEYPF.
That's great. And also, I loved your blog. I read quite a few. I hear you're a knitter.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh, that's great. Okay, so thank you so much for tuning in today to Focus Forward. I hope that you've learned from our phenomenal guests here and that it helps you to understand social media a little bit better and to be able to utilize it for your business to maximize the opportunities that are available out there in a way that is free and safe. Thank you so much.
Hey, this is Robert Dempsey with your tips from the net. And today I just want to talk about one of the golden rules of social media. And that rule is this: if you are going to use social media, you must be social, right? Social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of these platforms out there are not one-way communication tools. You don't just keep blasting your stuff out there because people will not like you for that. That's not the point of social media. It's social. Basically, I like to say social media without the social is a waste of time. Now, there are, though, having said that, some tools that can help you to be social on social media. So Twitter, and I use Twitter in a lot of examples because I really like Twitter, but a couple tools for you on Twitter. Number one is Communit, which I talk about all the time, just because it's really great for building your Twitter community and helping you identify potential leads. Because being social is great, but just doing it just for the sake of being social is not really going to help your business. So you have to identify potential leads on social media. So check out Communit. Hootsuite is another great tool. Actually, Hootsuite also ties in now with Google+. It's tied in with Facebook for a long time, LinkedIn, and it helps you keep track of all of these conversations. Number one, what you put out. Number two, people talking back to you. And if people talk to you, if they say, hey, thanks for XYZ on Twitter, definitely talk back. Don't be afraid to be personal. Now, if you're a business listening to this and you're worried about social media and what your employees might say, create a social media policy, help them understand where the boundaries lie, right? Like, you don't want to put a bunch of deeply personal things online. But if you come across like just some brand that doesn't care about people or some robot, then no one is really going to connect with you. Again, it's about people being social. Social media is merely just a medium for us to do that. So the big lesson here is if you're not ready to do that, if you're not ready to engage would be the buzzword, but basically, just talk with people on social media, then don't get into social media. But having said that, you really do need to be on social media. So I'll leave you with that for today. And I'm Robert Dempsey, and I'll see you for our next tip.